This real-side experience would open up in an apocalyptic type setting. Everything that transpires in creation is due to a decision that makes it so. The simulators are cause and effect in their design. That experiences are generated for the eventual recognition of the ears through the comparisons that they provide when viewed for what they are, and the decision to use them as the references they in fact represent is decided upon by the real you, when the process of becoming more aware and getting beyond the created personal self begins. Everyone then has their own unique experiences based on what they decide. The ideas they agree with that forges the effects they will create for themselves. An overall experience shared by all must be then agreement to the particulars, a decision on the ideas that makes the collective experience so. This is, of course, our situation here. The fear-based controlling rep systems have garnered agreement for their endeavours through whatever means necessary to make it so, as their idea creations represent restriction, as everything in creation in fact does. Overall agreement to restriction results in the overall effect of a constricted experience. And with these same ideas constantly agreed with over many lifetimes, the effect consequences compound in keeping with the ever compounded collective created consciousness that restricts itself continually with these same ideas of control. This then is reflected in the simulator we are in. It goes into a demise, as creation is a reflection of the created consciousness within it. Creation is the consciousness, so must mirror its construct. And so we see an ever-encroaching darkness, the black holes swallowing up the galaxies, and becoming increasingly more prevalent, a black sky which once was star-littered and full of light. A world that is marketed and programmed into the physical vehicles to look good on the surface, but viewed from other dimensions and the real side through the perceptions of the real awareness, and this world looks the way it actually is, black, murky, and devoid of vibrancy. Eventually, the effects show up on the physical. They are immediate on the real side, as everything very much presents instantaneously in this manner. Decision in any given moment is instantly so on the real side of life. Here, on the physical, things move more slowly through the cause and effect procession of decision and cause in, and effect experience out. But be assured, the effects show up eventually, and they really already are, but most don't see the steady demise of the world. The eventual effects of overall agreement to restricting ideas of control are these apocalyptic style scenarios. People are actually deciding upon and projecting themselves into such Mad Max worlds, and this real side experience opened up on such a scene, as I said, a broken, diseased, and dark world. There were the survivors, of course, and I was among them, and afforded this heads-up view. We had secured a dilapidated bunker, a make-do shack that served as our refuge from a harsh and bitter environment. It was well equipped. We evidently had been very busy making it as comfortable as the circumstances allowed. It was well stocked with canned goods, and all the supplies we had managed to acquire and scavenge. We had a fairly large group also, but were confident in the quantity of our supplies, that they would last us long enough before we would need to seek more. But then there was a loud pounding on our ramshackle door. One of our group would peek through a tiny slit in the wall and determine that the source of the hammering was yes, an individual who was amongst another group of a similar size to our own. We determined their intent was not malign. They were not here to fight or steal what we had, although I'm sure this was a constant in such a world as this, the squabbling and killing over what remained. This group were desperate. They sought to simply join our number, that they might prolong their lives and continue their survival. We would discuss swiftly the situation. At first, many of our number were reluctant to afford this desperate group aid, as yes, we had a fair quantity of supplies, but obviously it would be stretched more so were it required to be shared with more, and this group, in addition to ours, would effectively double the overall number of survivors. Outside, it was also beginning to rain. The rain became then a hailstorm, the hailstones the size of footballs. The weather here was very severe, not just in the size of the hail, which would, of course, not be very agreeable, but that there was a toxicity to it also, a kind of tainted affliction in the very elements that ensured any bad weather was hazardous to the body, something along the lines of an acid rain, or some variety of nuclear component. Based on this sudden change in the weather, this would decide us and settled the debate, and we would allow them access and to join our number. They shambled in, grateful for an assistance that I imagine was hard to come by. In such desperate and everyone for themselves times, there would be much mistrust among everyone who existed in such a world, I'm sure. Their group assimilated very nicely into our own, and initially there was little issue, altercation, or abrasiveness, but amongst the new group was an individual that I could identify from the physical level, deceased now, but an individual by the name of L. Ron Hubbard. He was an author of many books back in the 50s. He was also a pupil of the Satanist Aleister Crowley, and a practicing black magician in his own right. He had also invented the controlling and restricting system known as Scientology, another creation that, if aligned and agreed with, will keep you in creation, as all created ideas, spiritual paths, religions, and teachings will, if they do not reference the true reality or are backed by the ears and the real guides. L. Ron Hubbard would begin to curry favour from the overall group, to glean agreement to his position as an overall leader, with his compelling, pretty political style speeches that he would continually present us all with. As he spoke, he would reveal large pointed fangs, very much like those of a serpent, and as he would engage the crowd and spout his rhetoric, he would even shower saliva over the ever-growing in interest and engaged group of survivors, projecting saliva almost like venom from a spitting cobra. I could see the control he was garnering, and that this was not favourable for the group's survival. His intent inclined toward the malign, an insincere individual, a mini-dictator in the making, completely self-serving and self-absorbed. So I would challenge this individual in an attempt to derail his escalating control and hold over our group. This did not sit favourably with him, as he would bring his black magics to bear and assail me with its malicious taint. I would meet him head on, utilising my own abilities and psychic powers, and we would clash in a tremendous battle of wills and magic. The battle long and drawn out, but ultimately I stood victorious. He was defeated, and I smote his ruin upon the ground.